Welcome, Utes. We're going to talk about the top 10 coalitions that changed the world. Come and join the conversation. I'm here with uniquely the same advocate, Kurt. Welcome, Kurt.
Hi, Cal.
So we're going to have some fun today. Hi, Utes.
Hi, Utes. Hey, Utes. Hey, Utes.
So we're going to talk about coalitions, and really we just mean groups of people that have done things that have changed the world. And so I have my top 10. I'll be interested, Kurt, in what your reaction to that is, whether you agree or disagree, see whether you think it should be in the top 10 or nowhere near, those kinds of things. And you too, hopefully you'll give us some feedback in the comments below.
Join the conversation.
That's it, join the conversation. So my number 10 on this list is the city of Tokyo. The creation of the city of Tokyo, I think, is a coalition, a work of a group of people that has changed the world. I mean, think about modern cities in general. To me, it's unimaginable when you get into those things, how amazing that stuff is. I don't know if you get the same feeling, but when I go into a city, I go, wow, that's shocking. But Tokyo, of course, is the biggest city in the whole world. Right? Tokyo has 37.6 million residents.
Interesting. I never thought of a coalition of people developing a city, a major metropolitan.
I guess it's not
like
a purposeful coalition.
Right.
That's just sort of a bunch of different efforts that came together.
Right.
So, okay. So then, my number 9 coalition that changed the world is powered flight. Now that was just a coalition of 2 people primarily. But there's some debate about exactly whether Wilbur and Orville
were the first, right?
really did that or not. But so you got these 2 people that came together. They really set their mind to it and they went after it. And it was unimaginable. I mean, lots of people before that were writing, "No way, people are ever going to fly." You know, that's what birds are for.
Jules Verne thought about flight long before the Wright brothers even imagined it.
Yeah. So some people did imagine it ahead of time, but it really took a concerted effort.
Right.
To get it done. So powered flight. All right, number 8 is mapping the human genome. Now, I think this might even end up higher. 100 years from now, it might turn out to be even higher on the list.
Right.
But right now, there hasn't been tons and tons of stuff that's come as a result of it. There are a few things that you can point at. But on April 14th in 2003, they announced that they'd mapped the human genome. I think it was something like 99% accurately. And so that was, a lot of people don't know, that was an international collaboration of people. But there were more than 20,000 genes identified. And so they know their location and exactly how they're structured. And they know what's typical, at least of the people that were put together, and so now science can go back and take a look at those and see when there's changes or flaws or differences in those genes. Then they can correlate that to other things, and the hope is that that'll give you all sorts of information about genetic propensity for various things. Okay, number 7. Number 7 is another one that might catch you up a little bit by surprise, but I would say number 7 is vaccinations in general. When you think about just the whole concept of vaccinations, that's a medical collaborative effort that came about, that somebody figured out, boy, if we inject people with old dead viruses, what kind of an idea. Somebody had some crazy idea. Then all sorts of people tested it, ran clinical trials, and figured it out and said, wow, this really works in certain circumstances. All of these things, these coalitions, anybody above maybe 32 or 33 years old, if there weren't vaccinations in recent history, they wouldn't have been able to come up with it at all.
Right.
So many of the other inventions actually rely, I think, on vaccinations. So that's why it made my list. Is I just think the whole concept and the whole process. I don't know that we can really identify the exact coalition that created vaccines, but it's an interesting study if you want to look into it. Ready for my number 6?
Sure.
Okay, the number 6, I would say, is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now you have to have a pyramid on the list, right? When you think about coalitions.
Oh yeah.
Would a pyramid have made your list? If
Sure,
you stopped and
probably, yeah.
Because they're pretty amazing, right? I've never seen one. You've never seen one, have you?
Just on Indiana Jones or the movies or
Yeah.
on History Channel or something. Yeah.
I'd be interested if any of the Utes have seen one. You know, it'd be sort of fun to hear about your experience there.
But did the aliens build it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
people look at it and they think, that's a 30,000-pound rock that somebody moved. How
Right.
could anybody even move that, right? Even a coalition. It's almost unbelievable. So they say, oh, well, the aliens probably did it. What do you think? You think the aliens did it?
No.
No, yeah, me either. But I know there are people that think it, but that's why they think
A
it,
whole
right?
bunch of slaves. I think they were called the Jews at that.
Yeah, a lot of slaves are the ones that did it. Yeah, it was basically a whole lot of folks, right, that came together to move these huge rocks and put together these buildings, these pyramids that are just unbelievable. So you got to put the pyramids on the list, and the Great Pyramid of Giza, I think, is the greatest one.
Right.
And so I wanted to put that one out there.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 is movable typeface. Now, what I mean by that is just the printing press.
Right.
But usually we usually associate that with Gutenberg, and we just
Right.
say that one. But there were actually a whole coalition of people that were innovating, different ways of printing. And so the idea of movable typeface, was something that came along. And so you're a librarian, right? So
I volunteer at our library. Yeah.
yeah. So you're a library guy, and are you still volunteering there?
Still am. Yeah.
Yeah. So think about that. All those books, right? There's nothing there. All the people that are there that are researching whatever or learning about whatever, all that goes away without the typeface. Okay, number 4. Now I think this one, I'm hoping this one will surprise you too, because I picked it on purpose to surprise you. This is the number 4 item on the list, right? We're getting close to the very most important. And here's my idea: the scientific method. All right, because I think that without the scientific method, that's a way that we've started now to discover things. And so, things like the human genome or vaccinations or all that kind of stuff actually depended on those things, right? And I was saying how lots of things depended on
Other things.
on,
Right.
on those. So the scientific method is a pretty significant step where you start to, you build theorems, you prove the theorems or disprove them, and you start to move forward. It gives people the ability to converse about science.
Right.
And I'm still a pretty big believer in science. I think there's some pretty cool stuff. All the different medical research and things that are going on all depend on that.
Right.
So would that one have made your list?
Probably not.
Yeah. What items are on your list that haven't been mentioned so far that you would say are?
Just coalitions of people, like in military sense, the coalition of the Allied forces against the Axis forces in World War II would have been a coalition that would have changed the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's actually 2 coalitions there, right?
Yeah, the Axis
and
the
and it was
Allied,
gonna
right.
it was gonna go one direction or the other.
Right.
Right. So there's something's gonna change, and think about how different the world would have been if it would have gone the other way.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, number 3. Now, there's one that I think almost everybody would have on their top 10 list, and I tried to change it up a little bit. So that I think the one that everyone would have on their top 10 list is not on my top 10 list, and that is man walking on the moon. Right?
Took a lot of people to get that.
But I sort of have it in my top 10 because my number 3 is the International Space Station. Right? And I think you had to have the man walking on the moon to get to the International Space Station.
Right.
So I don't know how you think about that. Maybe it should be the other way around. It's the walk on the moon that would be the most important of those.
And without the coalition of the Allies defeating the Axis coalition, we wouldn't have had the first man. We wouldn't have brought
There you go.
Werner von Braun to the U.S. to help us develop our space program.
There you go. So you're trying to get on my top 10 list. You're trying to convince me that one should be on there.
Right.
That's a pretty good. I have to admit, that's a pretty good. It's a pretty good item that was an oversight on mine.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: powered flight, of course, was the precursor to
Right.
this too.
Right.
But fundamentally changed the way we look at ourselves and the universe is this whole space exploration.
Right.
Right? Without that, we used to think of the Earth as the center of everything.
Aliens were involved
and
in
didn't-
everything.
Yeah, and we didn't really think much of things outside of ourselves, or even just the narrowness of our own little town. right? And then the whole world came together when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And so anyway, but I think the International Space Station is an amazing thing, because they actually constructed this monstrosity of a building. I mean, I was saying earlier that, just building a building in a city is an amazing thing. Well, now they're building an enormous building
In
space, in zero gravity.
Right.
It still is unbelievable to me. They made some pretty good movies, too.
That's true. Gravity.
Gravity is the latest one, right?
Yeah.
So I think the International Space Station, or putting a man on the moon, however you want to put it, but I like the International Space Station because of the coalition nature of it. Changed the whole world, right? And maybe the stepping on the moon did, but that was sort of an American accomplishment, right? Now this is an international space station,
Right.
so that was sort of my thought. All right, number 2. Ready for number 2? So only 2 left. Number 2 is the internet.
That
I mean,
took a lot of people to get that done.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as saying, well, we wouldn't be doing this video and youths wouldn't be watching it without the internet.
True.
And but the idea of it was a coalition of people that brought the internet to fruition. What was the first time you saw the internet? Can you remember?
It was back in the I'm saying like I'm old. Well, he did remind me I am old. Thanks, Cal. It was in the 70s that I first got connected with the internet through bulletin boards and things like that.
So you used bulletin boards? I bet you a lot of people watching have no idea what a bulletin board is.
This is true. I'm sure they don't.
So, I mean, you used to go on. I mean, it's basically just chatting.
Right.
But it was like the early version of chatting. You'd go up and post your information, but it was complex because somebody had to be hosting the bulletin board, and that information then had to be saved, and then you could log in and look at information and add to it.
I used to use what they called 5.5-inch floppy drives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Information used to be on something that was 5.5 inches. Then they reduced it to 3 1/4.
Yeah.
Or 3.5.
And now we don't have them at all.
Now
There's no such
it's
thing.
all on a hard drive, and we don't see the disk anymore.
Or even out on the web itself, out on the
In the cloud,
yeah.
as they say.
There you go. So the internet, I think, though, is a pretty big deal because it's now allowing more collaborations, right? It's allowing people from very distant places to communicate with each other and to be in touch. And I think even like from a disability standpoint, now people that have maybe rarer diseases or whatever can be in touch with each other and be talking about things. So I think that's sort of a fun thing. Before I get to the number 1 coalition that changed the world on my list, I want to read you a quote. The world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of heroes, but also by the aggregate of tiny pushes of each honest worker. That's a quote by Helen Keller. I love that. Don't you like that one? This idea that we have a tendency to think of heroes as being so significant, but it's not the heroes. It's the tiny shoves of coalitions that make all the difference. Boy, that's something for Uniquely the Same to remember. So let's get to the number 1 item. All right. The number 1 item. I hope it's not too anticlimactic, but my number 1 issue is fresh water and plumbing. I think a coalition of people work together. They're actually an unknown coalition. You can't put a name and a group that actually accomplished this. But think about that. Think about if we didn't have water and plumbing, how much life would be different. In fact, there are a lot of people in the world that still don't, right? But so much of the advances, scientific advances and accomplishments, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you get certain things accomplished, then that allows you to focus on other items. So it's a little bit. I admit it's not the Allies and the Axis as the number one thing that changed the world. But I do think, boy, I'll tell you, I appreciate it, and I'll bet a lot of you appreciate indoor plumbing. So that's my number one.
When it works.
Exactly, if it works and when it works. All right, which one of my 10 do you think was just stupid and shouldn't have been on the list? All of them?
No, not at all.
Which ones on my list would you say you
Water
wouldn't
and
have?
plumbing problem.
That's my number one.
Yes, I know. It's okay.
I really appreciate plumbing. That's what you can learn from that.
Yes, you do. Fresh water.
So quite a few of mine are sort of out of the blue, like the scientific method one.
Well, you're thinking out of the box. What can you do?
Yeah, I guess a little bit.
That's part of being a Ute.
Not a very classic. I'd be sort of interested if people really disagree with any.
Please join the conversation. Let us know what you think of Cal's list. Really, I'm serious.
Yeah.
Really tell us what you think of Cal's list.
But you
The
don't.
old dung beetle that he is.
But you don't think any of mine were really stupid.
Not really stupid.
Which one would you? So the fresh water and after fresh water and sewage, what would you have?
Possibly the
Left off.
scientific method.
Yeah. So what would be your top list? Like for you to comment below. It's just a fun thing to talk about. Thanks for joining us today, Kurt. Thank you for coming and being a
Cal.
part of it. And come
Sure,
again.
no problem. Sure.
We'll do it more.
I'm uniquely the same. You're uniquely the same. And together, as a collaborative effort, we can change the world. Please join the conversation.
We are